Managers at two federal agencies have warned staffers that DOJ might be secretly monitoring their communications, including using software to track computer activity and possibly using artificial intelligence to scan for disloyalty or DEI buzzwords. That's according to new reporting from Crooked Media and The Guardian. They spoke to more than 24 federal employees who shared emails from agency officials and screen grabs. One employee from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development put it like this, quote, "It's like being in a horror film where you know something out there wants to kill you, but you never know when or how or who it is." All right, joining us now, Crooked Media correspondent and anchor of What a Day newsletter, Matt Berg, and Crooked Media news editor, Greg Walter. Matt, I want to start with you. What is the big takeaway? When you guys did this, you talked to all these people. What is the thing that stood out, and what's the big picture of this investigation?
The big picture here is that anxiety and fear are running rampant among federal employees, in part because some of them have been told that DOJ is monitoring their workplace, whether that be with artificial intelligence or just snooping out.
Told by whom?
Their managers at these at least two agencies that they are being monitored secretly in meetings.
Greg, what exactly are they monitoring for? Are they scanning for disloyalty? Are they scanning for, I don't know what?
Well, great question. DOJ has promised the American people both efficiency and transparency. It doesn't really seem to be delivering either one. But one of the things that the managers are warning employees about is they need to be careful with what they're talking about, because they shouldn't criticize Trump or Elon Musk or DOJ, and to be really cautious about what they're saying.
So in addition to writing their 5 things emails, which is the complaining I hear most from people in the government I'm talking to, they now have to worry about what they're saying even in their office. Greg, I also want to ask you, according to this new report, EPA managers told employees that DOJ was using AI to scan through agency communications to find any anti-Musk, anti-DOJ, as you just mentioned, or anti-Trump sentiments, adding that employees should be, quote, very careful about what they say in private messages and virtual meetings. All right, you've been around D.C. for a while. You've done a lot of reporting on the federal workforce. What impact do you think this is going to have in people's day-to-day effectiveness when they're afraid to even say something they think might be wrong with a program or whatever?
Well, I think this is reporting by Matt here and also Joseph Gedeon from The Guardian. And what they found was that federal workers are scared. They're nervous. They're losing sleep. They're not able to focus on what they're doing. They're worried about employees who have been fired. They're worried about being fired themselves. And in addition, they are very concerned about surveillance. We've heard stories of some people who have gotten white noise machines to turn on in their office. We've heard stories about people going into an office break room to turn on the faucet. You know, kind of
like out of a spy movie, like get in the shower so we can have a conversation.
It's like old school Cold War stuff.
Right.
Except this is not the KGB. This is the Trump administration that they're worried about.
All right, Matt, I do need to say the White House has issued a blanket denial saying, in part, quote, none of this story is true, and another fake news reporter is once again missing the point of DOJ. The EPA also denied its recording meetings, and the VA, you said, didn't respond to comment. Do you have a response to their response?
The managers seem to think otherwise. They think that DOJ is, in fact, doing this spying. The State Department also denied that they are scanning for loyalty or other, quote, ridiculous purposes. But the State Department is also aware these people are turning on the sinks and are worried that hot mics might be around. So managers seem to think otherwise at least two agencies.
I mean, it's been clear to government employees for years in Washington that people could or might be listening to them. I mean, I used to work in the State Department booth, and people would say, like, just be careful what you say around. So what's different about this, Greg? Is this just a whole nother level?
What's new is that managers are warning employees to be careful about not just whether you're spilling state secrets or whether you are saying something that could be embarrassing if it got out. They're telling them, don't criticize Donald Trump. Be careful about criticizing Elon Musk. Be careful about criticizing DOJ. And this is happening in the context when a lot of people are losing their jobs. They're uncertain about their future. And what Matt and Joseph found is a real culture of managers telling federal workers to be careful and federal workers taking extraordinary steps to be careful about what they're saying in these official lines of communication.
And Matt, very quickly before I let you guys go, all right, so you've already got people stressing about losing their jobs. You've got people stressing about whether or not they write these 5 things emails. On top of that, they're stressed about what they say. Do people have the bandwidth to do their jobs? Is this going to impact, like, the actual efficacy of these agencies?
So what I'm hearing from about 24 people who are in these agencies is that this is a huge distraction for them. They're worried, they're nervous, they don't want to come to work, and in a lot of ways, that might be the point of this.
All right, Matt and Greg, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.